we'll get started now. So, everybody, I want to welcome you most warmly to the Broadview National Reading Club. I'm very excited to be hosting this, and I'm very excited with the guests that we have. Nadine Green, who will be talking about her experience at okay, so I've just had a message. So Diana, guess what? We're now going to start with you, which is fine because we've already started our conversation. I had the sheer pleasure of interviewing Diana Beresford-Kroeger, and she is a doctor. I call her a doctor. She's an environmentalist and also a mystic. She's had a fascinating background in rich Celtic spirituality and the Brehon laws of Ireland. And she is a person who is a writer of multiple books, most of which I think are sitting in my library, and is very solutions-based in terms of what it is that we can do in the middle of the climate crisis. So, Diana, I'm going to start with you right now. And so my question to start is this. When I interviewed you a number of months ago, it was in the before times. And now we're in a different world. We have Donald Trump. We have seen him withdraw from the Paris Accords. We've seen him withdraw from multiple environmental organizations and remove the United States from them. Our own banks have now removed themselves from a global organization against to climate change and to around climate change. And so it seems like we're almost moving backwards. And so, Diana, I'd really like to hear sort of your take on where we are right now.
Well, my take is a little bit different probably from yours. I saw something in Ireland very similar to this when I was young, and when I was under the custodianship of the courts in Ireland, because I was an orphan and I was about 12 years old. Mountbatten, Lord Mountbatten was blown up in the north of Ireland, and he was an uncle to King Charles right now. And what happened, he was a very wealthy man. And I think the people who blew him up were the IRA, and they didn't really understand how important the man was in the industrial world. And he owned the Rank Industries. And you spell the word rank, R-A-N-K, the Rank Industries. They ran all the flour mills. They ran pretty well almost everything, as well as that film industry as well, the Rank Films. In Ireland, that man was in charge of everything. And he was blown out of the water. And he was a very good man. And it happened from one day to another in Ireland. One day, everybody had work. And everybody was busy. There was, it was after the Second World War and so on and so forth. And business was booming in Ireland. And Monday it was good, and Tuesday it stopped. It stopped entirely. The mills stopped, business stopped. And my uncle was in charge of the unions, and he locked me in a cupboard. When he had to leave the house, there was nobody else in the house. He locked me in a cupboard to keep me safe. And I wasn't supposed to answer anybody if they came to the door, if they came to the house, for fear that I would get beaten up. And it was a really horrible time for Ireland. There was no work to be had. The men started drinking, the women were beaten up, the children were beaten up. It was a really horrible time. But what Ireland learned out of that is they tightened their belts. They tried to survive with very little, and they did survive the system. But it was an agreement between everybody to survive the system and to get Irish industries going again. And that did happen. Now what we have is, in the leading country in the world, we have a man who is very erratic, to say the least of it, who lost his moral code if he ever had one. And now the astonishing thing is not so much that this man is a bully, because we do understand bullies from the school systems, is a bully, but that half of the American people went and voted for him. And that now today we do not have the other half of the American people, the Democrats and the liberals and so on and so forth, striding the streets in Washington to say we don't agree with the things you're doing. That's the astonishing thing for me. Where is the moral code in the rest of the country? And I think we're in very, very dangerous times, really dangerous. And I think Canada is going to be affected more than what you would realize and what I realize, because we're different. Absolutely.
So Diana, in your most recent book, one of the things you do talk about, because I think it's very easy for us, and I can only speak for myself here, to sort of feel overwhelmed by the events in which we're currently living. As my spouse put it, she says it's one thing. It's one thing to read about history. It's a very different thing to be living in the middle of it, and that's really where we are. And yet, I believe there are things that we can do. And in your most recent book, you spoke about the bioplan and the importance of planting trees, which is something we can all do. Could you talk a bit about that for us tonight?
Well, first of all, I have to mention something else that I put into that book, which is very important for all of us. It's the word asabiya, and it is a word that is out of the Arabic culture. And it's a word that we should understand. We don't have that word in our lingo. And in Ireland, we have Taimi the Kela. We are running together. We are living in the shadow of one another. And what I'm talking about is we have to have community. And part of that community is what drives all of us to do things together. And so then let me take a step over Trump's body and say, try not to get too worried about that. Try not to. The man will make a mistake fairly soon. He will make a mistake and everybody will realize it. But climate change is not going away. Climate change is going to be the ultimate disaster that all of us are going to have to deal with. Last summer, the monkeys fell out of the trees in India dead. They use monkeys in medicinal trials. And if the monkey dies out of the tree, then we're next. So the temperatures were in the region of 55 degrees C. And in the world of forests, if you get temperatures above 48 degrees C and you have a resinous forest, that's evergreens in your forest, they will flash fire. And this is what's happened down in Australia. It's also what happened in Canada, and very much so down in California. So to me, what we have to do this, is you and I have had a very good life for the last, let's say, 50, 60, 70 years. You knew people who had a car, and it was a big deal to have a car. When I was a young child, it was a big deal. You'd try and get a lift in somebody's car. Yeah, you would, and I did too. But in the meantime, all of us have 2 and 3 and 4 cars within the family, maybe some people even more. I have a cousin in England who has 9 cars in his family. So let's go back to this. What do cars do? It's oxidation reduction, it's combustion. They're putting carbon dioxide in the air. And everything we're doing is pumping carbon dioxide in the air. That was fine 100, 200, 300, 400 years ago. But 400 years ago, we still had our forests. Now, today, we know that trees actually need to drink carbon dioxide in the presence of sunlight. Sunlight is radiation waves. In the presence of sunlight and a bit of moisture in the atmosphere. And lo and behold, the tree performs magic, and that is the photosynthetic reaction. It's the green reaction, producing oxygen and producing sugars that go into the building of a tree. Oh my God, now we realize we should have kept our forest. We've taken down too much forest. We need to put the forest back up because it's a green machine. It's a green biological, biochemical machine. We didn't know this. So we've got to replant the forests, and the forest would suck the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. It does it for nothing. It does this reaction for nothing. We do not pay a tree to absorb carbon dioxide. So that's all we have to do. And I reckon the bioplan, in one of my books, all of my books actually, in the bioplan, plant one tree per person for the next 6 years. We will have something in the region of 50 billion trees back into the ground, and we needn't worry about atmospheric carbon dioxide again. We needn't worry too much about climate change because we pull the climate temperatures down. But why this today is so important, today, this month, next month, the month after is so important. If you look at your maps, at the meteorological maps, you look at the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, they are heating up in a way we did not realize that they would heat up so fast. The poles are both melting. We have got to stop this. And forget Trump right the moment. We got to stop this, you and I. And I believe that all of us together, and I'm talking about all of us together, the children, the older people, the whole lot of us, get those trees in the ground and we'll be singing daisies again.
But it is also a question, though, of the right type of trees, is it not, Diana, that we need to be careful about that?
Go back then to something else. Please do a Zoom. Please do run my film Call of the Forest, The Forgotten Wisdom of Trees. And that's a documentary which is scientifically really correct for the whole planet. So you look at that, you stream that out of Amazon or someplace, you stream it, look at it very carefully and learn from that. That's the only way I can do it. Learn from that. You plant the right trees into the right place, because if you put the wrong trees into the wrong place, you get what's happened in California. In California, they took down a lot of their forest and planted eucalyptus. Eucalyptus does not shed out its leaves. It sheds its bark, which is full of resin. If you were on a motorbike or on a cycle, and in the dry conditions of California, if you put a cigarette butt into the forest or into the area where you were passing by, you would start a sheet flame of fire across the land. And that's the wrong tree. Eucalyptus should be planted in Australia. They're taking them down in Australia, and we're planting them like idiots. So stop doing that. Now I have an app to go with Call of the Forest, and you can get that app too. It's calloftheforest.ca, and I have geo-positioned all of the growing zones of North America, and you just pop in your growing zone and it'll give you the 4 or 5 trees that you can put in for your own area. And let me say, a starter for all of us has to be the oak. The oak is the most solid tree in North America. It can withstand temperatures, it can withstand drought, it can withstand all kinds of things, excess sunlight. So you start off with an oak, one of your local oaks. And that's cheap. All you have to do is go and visit an oak, get the acorns at the right time of the year, and I have indicated that in my writing. Get the right acorns, maybe in August or September for you, depending on what oak you take, and plant it. All you need is a little trowel, and then mark the area. I mean, like a child can do this, and I've seen children doing this in Japan. I help them to do it. No excuse.
Well, Diana, I'm going to have my 3-year-old grandchild help me plant an oak under which she will sit under the shade that I will not. So thank you very much. And we're going to bring Nadine in now and we're going to move from the issue of the climate crisis and into another crisis that we are experiencing in this country, which is one regarding the unhoused. So it's a pleasure to introduce Nadine. Nadine has experienced hopelessness and she sees opportunity and adversity and works tirelessly to support those who have fallen through the cracks. And for 5 years, Nadine sheltered and cared for people experiencing being homeless in her downtown Kitchener convenience store until she too was evicted for doing so in January of 2020. And she's continued to care for unsheltered folks. And she is part of a better tent city. And she continues to live on site and help manage life at ABTC. And what she is doing, I think, is absolutely, personally, I think it's remarkable. I think it's hopeful. It's a model that needs to be replicated across the country because it is everywhere. And I think that is one thing that in our pre-conversation, Nadine, I said to you that it doesn't matter where you are in Canada right now. Folks are experiencing, there's an unhoused crisis. And my first question to you, as somebody who's experienced homelessness, is what impact did that have on you when you were living through that?
Um, it was awful. And, I kept silent because I didn't want to tell anyone I was homeless. I was still in high school, and you know what it's like. Sorry, I thought I had my headphones. Can you
Okay,
can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I was in high school at the time, and I didn't want to share with anyone that I was homeless, just in case. I think I better take headphones out. You don't want to share that you're homeless because you don't want your friends to know in case they don't have you over. So you keep silent. And I just went through. It was only for a short while, but it was long enough to just have that stamped on you. And even when you get housed, you still have that in the back of your mind. Like, I was homeless. I just went through a hard time and I told no one. So, yeah, it was hard.
It was hard. And that led you to start sheltering people yourself because of your own experience. Can you tell us a bit about how you started doing that?
Yeah, so I think that was one of the driving force of me helping people in my convenience store because at the time downtown, that was 2019, they were revamping the downtown. So they were building all these new buildings and they got rid of the older buildings, and the older buildings were affordable. People could afford to rent a room for 500. Apartments were like $500 a month. So then they tore down all those buildings with the cheaper rent, and then no one can afford it, and people just became homeless so fast. And a few people were just laying down in front of my store, and I would just, and prior to that I was always going out and just asking someone, can I offer you a drink, can I offer you a donut? And they would just look at me like I was weird. Like, who's this lady? And someone asked me, what church are you from? And at the time I didn't go to church. I said, well, I don't go to church. And they're like, who's paying you to help us? I said, no one, because they found it strange. Because, in Canada, we're nice, but we're not that nice sometimes.
Yes.
And it's just that people just don't know what to do. You see somebody on the street, you don't know what mood they're in. People are always in a hurry. So there are a lot of reasons why people don't help. But I was right there, and my store was right in the area. And I just went out, and word spread, and people just started coming in, and people would come in. Like, I remember the one time I was getting credit from this lady that made Jamaican food. So she dropped off a whole bunch, and people were coming in, and you could tell they were hungry. And I would go up to them and say, can I offer you a meal? and word spread, and I was giving out the meals. And and after the lady who I owed, she came for her money. I owed her like $600, and I said to her, I gave away all the food. Can I get some time to pay? And she says, you know what, Nadine, you don't owe me anything. I was like, thank God, because to come up with her money. And then after that, she jumped right in, and because she owned a, a restaurant at the time, she would just drop extra food off, and that way I didn't have to order anything. So she would just drop excess food, and that's when I went from there and
Well,
offering meals and just doing all of that.
which is really wonderful. Oh, Nadine, I just lost your. There we are. You're back. Um,
Yes,
could you
because I
talk?
have do not disturb and somebody was. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Can you talk about how the project you're a part of got started, and how is it going right now?
Well, it's going wonderful. It's going beautiful. So how it got started was the same thing from my store, and then the one night I was on my way home, and it was really freezing, like how it was a week or two ago. And I left the store, and people by then I had a drop-in center, so I would close at 4 a.m. And I was leaving, and everybody got out of the store. And as I was driving away, it was just to get in my car, like my hands were frozen within seconds. And I turned back, and I had uh, a conversation with myself and also with God. And I said, I can't leave these people alone. And I replied, no, Nadine, you can't. You have to turn back. And I'm like, okay. So I turned back, opened the door. And when I opened the door, they were like, Nadine, what are you doing? I thought you were going home. I said, you guys are my friends, and there's no way I can go home and leave you out here. And I opened the door, and they came in, and it was cold for a few days. And then next thing you know, it was shelter. And through that word spread, I met Ron Doyle. He would come by and visit, talk to me, and just saw how everything was going. And then eventually I got evicted, and he came up with the idea, which he had the idea in his head about a better tent city. And he said, I can bring all of my homeless friends with me to his event space. Because by then it was COVID. He had this event space. Nothing was going on because people had to stay in. Everything was closed. So I went and gathered everyone, brought them to the event space, and that was the form of a Better Tent City. So that was 5 years ago. He said I had to live there, which I did. I moved into a tent for 7 months to live with the people, and that was April 15, 2020. Now it's 2025, March 2025, and I'm living in my tiny home with the people and being a part of the movement. And as what Diana said, she's doing her thing with the trees, and I'm doing my thing with the people.
Describe the house that you're. Can you show us the house and give us a tour?
Well, it's a tiny home. It's kind of messy right now, but I'll show you.
That's
So this
okay.
is my bed. This is my second floor up. So most of the houses, they'll have a bed where they have their bed up, and then they'll have, but with me, I have like a lot of clothes there because I still have to organize because I'm really busy all the time. I just work, then I come in,
Yep.
I sleep. And so then, but I always keep my bed area nice. So this is my second floor with my bed. I have my books on the side. I have my awards, a couple of awards that I've won, and all of that there. So that's about it. I have a TV that I never watch because I don't have the time. Because usually when I come in my tiny home, it's just to go to bed, and I usually watch stuff on my phone. So I never turn off my TV. This was a gift from Ron Doyle. I'll take
Nice.
that. So I
So,
got the TV there and all that.
Nadine, how many people are living in these homes now?
So we have 42 tiny homes. We have 50 people that we call members that's been apart from the convenience store to here because they're still homeless, still trying to make it through. And we have, so each of the 50 people can have guests. So each person have a guest. So now we probably have about 100 people. But the guests come and go. So we have 50 members, and so each day we'll have 100 people coming in. When it's a cold night, we'll have people drop by and they want to maybe get warm until morning comes. So we will let them either go in somebody's house that they know, or they sit in our common area, watch TV. We always have food available, because that's one thing, people need food. And our kitchen is open 24 hours, which I was the driving force to that, because I remember it in my um, convenience store, somebody will come in at 4 a.m. and they're hungry and they want food. So we keep our kitchen closed. We have a fully staffed, and we're always available for when somebody drops by, because you don't know when Jesus is coming. He can come as a homeless person, and if he comes, he can be let in and get a meal, and then he can be on his way to his next destination.
That's wonderful. Thank you for the work that you were doing. One of the things that is common across Canada is this crisis. I mean, in Ontario, we have 80,000 people that are unsheltered or unhoused, and it's a disaster across the country that's not being treated like a national disaster. And my final question for you is, for those of us who care, who are engaged in this, what should we be doing? What is the most helpful thing we can do in our own communities to try and do something similar to what you're doing?
So the thing that people can do first is they can donate to something like a Better 10 City. We need donation so we can carry on our work. They can volunteer. They can go on our website, which you shared online. They can go on our on our website if they want to volunteer, and they can get to know somebody that's homeless. When you're driving by, there's always guys panning on the side of the road. It's honest work, and when I say work, is they're panning, at least they're not stealing something. You can give maybe $1, or if you don't have any money, maybe give a smile, and just little things you can do research about homelessness. Like, for instance, last night I got a call from somebody. They saw me on Facebook and they called me. It was really cold last night, and he's like, I am stranded outside, can you come and get me? I was busy, but then I went to pick him up. Oh, it broke my heart. He was so cold. I picked him up, brought him to a Better 10 City, got him a blanket, but he was outside. He got kicked out from wherever he was. I didn't ask any questions. He was just stranded. And he's like, I saw you on Facebook. I know you help people. I mean, I can't do that all the time, but I went, and it's hard to get into anywhere. You have to make calls. It's hard to get into the other shelters. But I took it upon myself, and I was happy I did. And I picked him up. He stayed for the night, and today he's gone somewhere else. He just needed help for that short space of time. And that's the beauty about a Better 10 City. We just help people in the now, and then the rest will take care of itself.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for the work you're doing. It's absolutely critical and life-saving. So I'm sure I speak for all of us in terms of saying deep appreciation for that. So I'd now like to bring Diana back with Nadine. And you've heard each other's presentations. And I'd like to invite the two of you to have a bit of a conversation for the next few minutes in terms of what I would call the intersectionality between a climate crisis and homelessness. I mean, Nadine, you spoke about the renovictions, where we're seeing, in my own view, an enormous amount of greed that goes into creating expensive housing and a housing crisis that we have in Canada in terms of affordability. And I think there may be some linkage, Diana, to the things that you're seeing in terms of the climate crisis. So I'll let the two of you begin a conversation.
Well,
Hello, Diana.
hello
Hello.
there. Tell you
You
first.
see me now. Like, you see me now.
You see me now, you don't see me. I'll tell you, if you were a girlie who was in high school and you didn't have a place to stay, damn it, it's a pity you didn't know me, because you'd soon have had a place. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I didn't tell anyone, Diana, so no one knew, and I was on the sports team, so I was just keeping busy, and I had a job after
Yeah,
school, so no one knew that I was homeless. I didn't tell anyone
you have to hide. I know in this country you have to hide all the bad,
because of the shame. Yes, yes.
and
It's
it's shame. There's nothing shameful about it. But I'm telling you straight now, there ain't anything shameful about it. I'm glad in some ways it's happened to you, because it,
That's why I do what I do now. Yes.
yeah, wakes you
Mhm.
up, and you can see the real heart of people.
Yes.
And for me too, I've had a terrible childhood because I was, bumped in. I should have gone into one of these awful schools, except the judge was afraid to send me into the school. So I've had a terrible childhood too, and I think it's been a very good thing, because I have compassion for people. I
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
how rotten life can get for some people, and
Yeah.
I'm here to help too. You know,
Yes. Yes.
so so, but I have done in the city. The men's shelter burnt down, and I did a lecture series in the city at the Museum of Nature, and I had a young man who was very tall, very blonde, come up to me and he said, "Oh, ma'am, is anybody looking after your money?" And I said, "Oh," and he said, "Well, I understand money. I can look after your money." And I said, "How come?" He said, "Because I was a bank robber." And he said, "I
That's so.
money." So I said, "Okay, go for it." And all the big donations that the men's shelter got, he,
Hmm.
out of his own pocket, gave each one of them a red rose.
Oh.
See,
So nice.
oh, it's a matter of doing things just like you are. It's
Yeah.
exactly. Now I've had a couple of ideas here.
Mm-hmm.
Them is in Canada we have 40 million people. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
there was a tax put on the 40 million of $1. Just let's start with $1 per year for one this year, $1 per year from all of us. I think we are a nation of refugees. All of us are refugees
Yeah.
here. We all came in with the same idea of getting a home, a stable home, peace, and some privacy and comfort. And I think that if we had a taxation, let's call it a taxation on everybody $1. I don't know how to do it, but that might work. But I have another idea. The other idea is we're supposed to have 100 people listening to us, you and I. So some one of you people listening, wake up to this fact that if we had a lottery and the beneficiaries of the lottery were the building of those small houses or any kind of housing that we need for the homeless, take all the money, and that would be $40 million as a startup amount into the lottery, and would start to build the buildings. And the machinery, my husband has said to me, has assured me, the machinery for understanding and putting together a lottery is already in Canada. So somebody listening to this, please wake up to this fact. Run a lottery. All of the country are refugees. We've all been refugees. We would happily buy a ticket to benefit the people who are homeless, because somebody like me, I don't know what to bloody do. I'm working my buns off for the tree thing, just like you are doing it, and I'm happy to be of any help. I would do it. It's an idea. That's all. It's an idea. So somebody, let's put that idea out into the future there, and maybe, well, not maybe, you will benefit. Absolutely.
Thank you, Diane. Nadine, one question I have that is, I think, connected to this is, um, why is it, in your view, that in the midst of what is truly, and I've described it as a national crisis that is not being treated like a national crisis, and it's the only one in my lifetime that I can ever remember that has not been a crisis that has been not treated like a crisis, what is it going to take for us as a nation to truly take this actively on and say that this is unacceptable?
Yes.
Because it seems to me, Nadine, that one of the things, and I have worked in this area as well, but we have not been able. I think of the work I did in Syrian refugees, where all of a sudden the whole country was supportive of that. But then when I tried something similar around a pilot project that I was part of for using the refugee sponsorship for a model for homelessness, it was it did not catch Canadians in any way, shape, or form in the same way. So what is it going to take, do you think, for us to finally wake up, in the words of Diana, and deal with this as a national emergency?
Well, I know that that the people on the street know that it's a crisis, and the outreach workers and all the people that work with people who are homeless know it's a crisis, and their family knows because their family never see them. The people who are hard into the outreach work hardly sees their family. So there's a whole bunch of people that know, but nobody's saying anything because of the stigma of homelessness. So we just have to break the chain. And what we do at a Better 10 City, we're always posting, we're always talking, having the conversation. The only thing that we may have to do is get to the politician, maybe get to Doug Ford or something. I don't know his take on homelessness. I don't think he likes homeless people that much. I'm not sure. But we just have to get to the politician. But the families who have people who are homeless knows the crisis. So it is out there, but no one talks about it. So with what you're doing today, people will talk about it more and just have awareness and just know that this is a real issue going on. People are suffering out here.
Nadine, somebody like one of the top hockey players, because I had one of them down in Windsor, and I saved in a huge area for the kids for a forest school for the kiddies down there. Somebody who was maybe the top player of the hockey, come in with you lot, come in with you and sleep maybe in your bed and have the cameras. They
Yeah.
prepared to do this. Somebody famous, let's say just Trudeau. Let's pretend we could persuade
Just
running over tops and tails with you in your bedroom, and he sleeps there for the night. How about that for a lesson for the country?
Well, Wayne Gretzky needs some positive publicity right now, so maybe Wayne could come in. So what I'd like to do now is open it up to questions to both Diane and Nadine, and so I'm now going to turn it up to audience questions. And what I'd like you to do is just I sent out a question for everybody to reflect upon first in terms of the impact of homelessness in folks' own communities, which I'm sure you're seeing. And because I live in Hamilton, and I'm certainly seeing it all the time, and also the climate crisis that all of us are experiencing. So, sort of as your background thoughts, what are some questions that you would like to ask our guests?
Well, I'm wondering what we
Could
can
you tell us who you are, please? And where you're
from Edmonton. I'm wondering what trees we can grow in northern Alberta from Edmonton north. Edmonton is actually about central Alberta.
Okay, you can grow Quercus macrocarpa, which is the bur oak, and you have local bur oaks where you're living there. And I would suggest for you to take a walk into the forest. For you, it would be August, and start looking at the trees that are bearing heavily, and choose a tree that's very, very healthy to take the acorns off, and go back in the middle of August to the end of September. Now, what you have to watch for is the animals, the birds and the squirrels will start taking the nuts. They know when the nuts are ripe to germinate, when the acorns are ripe to go. So you have to go snooping quite a bit at the tree, and then collect 20, and then put them in a bucket, and the floaters, those that float, throw them away, and the ones that sink, keep them, plant them, put them in the ground with a pinch of bicarbonate of soda, because it stops the smell in the nut. Put it down about 3 inches down, soil over it, and mark it. And baby doll, you will have a wonderful forest in time.
So did you say that was a bur oak?
Buroak, a bur oak. Bur oak is Quercus macrocarpa. That's the Latin for bur oak. And we have different races of bur oak all around the continent. And that one, the bur oak, goes to the farthest reach of the north. So you are a kind of a cold person in a cold place. So you get your local bur oak. That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next. All right,
Hello.
Joanne, where are you from, Joanne?
Hi, I'm from Victoria, BC. Greetings, Nadine. I read
Hello.
your story in there. So
Thank you.
inspiring. We have a small tiny home community in Victoria.
Yes, sir.
Similar. When I moved to Victoria, shortly after COVID started, and I was so amazed and happy to find out, sorry, this isn't a question, just a quick thing, that there's grassroots people reaching out to all the people camping in the parks. And so our United Church, some people joined that and got to know people. And then after, I had somebody living with me for a few weeks during the coldest part of the winter. I guess, and I started a community lunch once a week at our church hall, and 2.5 years ago. But it was very interesting to see that it was so easy. I put a call out for volunteers on Facebook and in our area, and I had about 35 people reply from the community. I'm so happy somebody's doing something. Yes, I want to help. So I think sometimes it takes yeah, I mean, if you're on the right path, it happens, right? Like, look at you.
Thank you. Thank you for
I'm
that.
amazed. I couldn't do that, but the community lunch is a good way because we do get to know people, and then we can help them sort of,
Yeah.
it's not all unhouse people, but there's some, and there's some house people too. So yeah.
Joanne, I've got a
Thank you.
question for you.
Mhm.
Then, based on your own experience, what wisdom would you have for us as a group in terms of the churches or other communities that we're a part of to get something started? What steps do you think are the most important to start with?
Yeah. Well, I think speaking about it like a willing congregation, and but everybody might not understand or know about this or understand it, or there could be some fear or something, but I think we've got to start small and start talking to people about these things. And I mean, we have the best kitchen. I mean, I just felt like our church was going to waste because we had the industrial kitchen, and so, and I would say we have volunteers. We also take volunteers with lived experience. I never turn down anybody. And that's been great too, because we have buy-in from the unhoused community and, that type of thing. Yeah. Anyway.
That's so nice.
That's good to hear, Joanne. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Good for you, girl. Good for you.
All right, next question.
Sheriff, I can for a minute. I attend Faith United in Hamilton, and we do a project, and we feed up to 800 to 1,000 every Saturday. We send meals down to Gore Park, and it started just a simple. We heard about the need, and we've grown to the point where it's crazy busy at our church 7 days a week, and we've just there was an article in our local paper in January, and because of that, we got donations. We don't have a commercial dishwasher, but we got enough donations to be able to buy a commercialized dishwasher very soon. So it's crazy busy and lots of fun.
And
Yes.
again, sorry, Kalina, how many people are you feeding?
Well, we send food for approximately up to 1,000. It depends, and we take food. We pick up food all week from Sobeys is a big provider, Metro and Costco, and so we repurpose food that would have went to the landfill, and that's what we make. So we never know what we're making. We find out on Friday or Saturday when we go in, whatever's been brought in through the week, that's what is used to make the meals. And we also went out to the encampments in the summer. And when Nadine said about you never know when Jesus is coming, that's what Anne, the coordinator of ours, says too. You never know when Jesus is going to show up at that door, so you better be ready. And but yeah, it's a great project. Chris, you're close to it. You'll have to come over someday, and I'll.
Absolutely, Colleen. Absolutely. Nadine, any comment about what Colleen is doing?
That is amazing because Hamilton needs a lot of help. They're
Yeah.
trying to come with, trying to get their tiny home started.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of roadblocks. And I know the people that are doing the houses, the tiny homes, and it's so hard.
And it started with during COVID as well, when Jeffrey Ng,
Yeah.
who's the executive
Yeah.
director, and 3 or
Mhm.
4 friends decided there's people on the street and they can't get into restaurants. And they started with peanut butter and jam sandwiches and chicken noodle soup, feeding 35 people a week. And sort of at the end of 6 weeks said, okay, we think we're done. Somebody said, oh no, what are we going to do now? And it's just grown. When our church started, we were doing 300 to 400 a week, and now it's anywhere up to 800 to 1,000 that we.
I think Hamilton needs to do better. They can get some
Oh,
tiny homes
absolutely.
going.
Absolutely.
Because when I know I know that when the people become homeless at first, they can't just move into an apartment. They need something small
Yeah.
and first, and then they can move on. You can't throw them into apartments because
Right.
they can't handle it.
Yeah.
Something happens to people when they're out there in the wild. So you have to start off small and then they get into an apartment building.
Yeah. And the majority of ours, I think it's 20% they figure are homeless. It's people that are seniors and people with young children,
Yeah.
students who just can't make ends meet. They just can't pay their rent and buy food. So choices
It's
have to
hard.
be made.
It's
Yeah.
hard.
Thank you. Next question.
I just want to say one thing, Chris.
Certainly, Diana.
And out in Vancouver at the Unity Centre, out in Vancouver, the woman's name is Janet Law, who's head of all of this. They are doing experimental small houses, and so far as I know, 16 of them have gone up. So that's some place that you could maybe tap on for a little bit of knowledge. They are putting money together for this kind of thing too. I'm just adding a bit, that's all.
Thank you. It sounds like all sorts of things are popping up in communities across Canada. Next question.
If I could comment.
Sure. And who are you? Sorry, there we go. Mary Margaret. All right. And where are you from?
I live in the middle of nowhere, truly.
Okay.
But I'm sort of partway between Lindsay, Ontario and Peterborough, Ontario. I attend a small rural church. But I've served on a number of committees in our region. And I recently attended an excellent webinar in East Central Ontario Regional Council. And one of the things, there were speakers from a lot of different topics, and one was homelessness and one was ecology or eco-spirituality, and it was an excellent webinar. It was about a week ago that it was held. One of the questions I brought up, and I'm going to bring it up here again because I think you represent a lot of different regions in this webinar. When our church buildings go up for sale, how dedicated are you and how dedicated is your region to making sure that what happens to those buildings is not just for profit, not just to make money for the greater church or the region, but that actually they're proactive about providing not just affordable housing, but subsidized housing for people in the area. I think it's something that's very important that we should be looking at regionally and nationally in our church. And that we know a lot of buildings are on the chopping block, and there's a lot of buildings that probably should be on the chopping block because we have too much real estate. And so how do we make sure that that can be done for the greater good?
That is such an excellent question, and I would happily dedicate an hour to that alone. But I think you really are coming to really to the nub of the point in terms of what is our responsibility to our ancestors who built these buildings, our responsibility to our current congregations, but our responsibility to the wider community. And I can't speak for anybody except for myself here, but I believe deeply as a member of the United Church of Canada that we have a responsibility to make sure that those sorts of things happen. That the legacy that is left when a community of faith no longer exists in its current form is that the caring and the love continues in a different way. And my hope would be that those are the conversations, and I know that they are in a number of places that are happening. But I think it's critically important, especially now when we're in an affordability crisis.
I just like to say, like, now that I'm not, like, now that we have organizations like Kindred Works in our church and United Church Property, that we have the means to be able to do this, I think, now, and we have to be proactive. And I think early on in my days in the church, I will never forget hearing a group from the not the United Church, but from the Church Council of Women, an international organization, and they were saying, what is the biggest problem that you have in your area? And the United Church spokesperson said, we have too many buildings. Imagine that being your biggest problem compared to homelessness, compared to housing, compared to feeding people, compared to climate act, the actions we can take about climate change. So it's something I think that we have been a bit complacent about and need to be more proactive about.
Great. Thank you, Mary Margaret. I'm just aware of time, so I want to give anybody else an opportunity to ask a question of either Nadine or Diana.
Can I break in here again, Chris?
Of course.
Can I ask Nadine to give her address and contacts to you? And would you give them to me? Why I'm doing that is I have a lot of people who kind of trust me and they want to get rid of excess money. I do not take it, but I funnel it into different people. So the next person who comes to me and says they have too much bloody money, I am going to say I can relieve you of a certain amount going down to Hamilton, going down to you, right? Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sure we can. I'm sure Nadine would appreciate the donations.
Well, of course, yes, we will. To carry on the movement.
Yeah.
Any other? Can I have another question before we wrap up for the night?
I have something to add before we wrap up.
Absolutely, Nadine.
So yeah, what I wanted to say, it's almost 5 years since I've been living at a Better 10 City. And someone asked me in an interview last week or about a month ago, they said, how long do you intend to live this life in the tiny home? I said, however long it takes. And as far as I see, it's going to take a long time. I made the promise to the people, but it looks like it's going to take a long time because as we peel away all the layers of homelessness, like I'm knee deep and neck deep, and I find that like there's so many layers that I didn't even understand as a homeless person many years ago. There's so many layers that I am just diving so deep, and it's going to take a long time for me to come out of this tiny life. And the beauty about living at a Better 10 City, the Lord has blessed me where I get the best sleep. Like I get my 2 days off where I go out of town just to unwind. And it's like it's better off if I stay home because I get the best rest. And I think God is doing that. The best rest, just my feeling inside, I feel so satisfied, so well with myself, with my mind, just everything. And I think it has to do with with the service that I give to the people, and God pays me back so much, and I'm so thankful. And I know living at a better tent city was the right decision. And maybe, as you said, Diana, being homeless at that young age, I was
Yeah,
getting ready for this job that I didn't know because I didn't pick this.
yeah, and
And just,
I'm the same thing. You're
yeah, and
in the Gaelic world, it would consider you will have spirits around you, and you will have God around you, and you will see God in different places and in different people. But when that person shouts into your head that God is attending you, pay
yeah,
attention. And
yes, yes, and I did. And
yeah,
it's just, and a better 10 city, I stand by a better 10 city because
I
I live here.
yeah, and
And
I think you and I will have something to do with one another in the future.
yes, yes,
I,
thank you.
And just remember, I'm an Irish woman and I still do like potatoes. So,
Yeah. And I have some of my friends always ask me, how can you live in a house without a washroom? And I have to say, in the olden days, there was no washroom in your house. You had to
yeah,
go outside. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
going back to primitive life, and this is how it is. And if I can do this to help 100 people and to help the greater community of homelessness, I take on this challenge. I am so
Nadine,
blessed and honored.
Nadine, don't have your vision so small. You're doing it for the whole country. You're
Yes.
example for the whole country. And that's
Thank you.
in of you.
Thank
And
you, Diana. And you're doing great work too.
well, the
Great.
two
I
of us
really want
are young, and I will be seeing you, I know.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I want to thank you both for your conversations, for the work that you're doing. You are both leaders and doing transformative work for our country and our world. And I know that I am sure that all of us have been inspired by the conversations that we have had tonight, and having an opportunity to speak with both of you.
Now,
So thank you so much for a wonderful hour. And I want to thank everybody who has shared and participated in this. I believe there will be an opportunity for some feedback on tonight. And we will be meeting again next month with new guests and new conversations. And I just want to wrap up by saying thank you to everybody. And I think, Diana, there's something else you want to say. So I'll let you speak.
okay. It's a Celtic blessing from the old world, from the 5th century, and it is an environmental one. Beg dialat, agus go meg cumio, agus go nairitu. May you walk with divinity. May you rise within personality with yourself like yeast, and may you be fine with your health.
Thank
Well,
you.
that's a perfect way to end our evening. Thank you,
Thank you, Christopher,
Diana.
for putting this
Thank you,
together.
Nadine. It's
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
it's just been a joy for me to have this hour with everybody.
Yes. Thank you.